I've had a lot of people reaching out to me about the cost in Southern Utah to finish a basement. Real quick, just so you know, finishing a basement versus turning it into an ADU or like a rental space or mother-in-law apartment, night and day. Big difference between the two. But just to finish your basement for your standard 900 square foot basement, standard finish, you're going to be looking at about 35 to 40K. Biggest factors that would make it a lot more than that would be not having window wells for your bedrooms. I mean, first of all, having it not framed out properly how you want to have the layout. That's going to be a big factor, especially if you're trying to move bearing walls. But yeah, besides that, your plumbing, making sure that you already have connection set up. If you don't, you're gonna have to add a pump and pump it out, and that's gonna be a pretty big expense. Another big one is making sure that you have window wells for your bedrooms. All bedrooms require 100 square feet plus a closet with heating and cooling, and also a ways of egress, which is why I brought up the window well. So that's going to get kind of pricey, bringing tractors out and concrete saws to cut your concrete and all of that. Another big factor is your utilities, making sure that you have plumbing hookups as far as like water lines, and then the other one is going to be your electrical, making sure that you can bring your wires in. You can get them to the basement to do that. That one's not as detrimental as the other ones. So for that 35 to 40, you're going to have to frame your walls to make them so they work. That's going to be five to $7,000 right there. After which you have your bathroom. That's going to be a big chunk of what it is, especially with all the different finishes you can get. But just a standard bathroom, tub, toilet, sink, you're looking, plus tiling and all of that, you're looking at 10 to 12. Obviously, if you have to have a pump and all of that, way more. And then your next big expense after those two is going to be your flooring. You're going to have about 10 to $12,000 be going into what you decide to do for your flooring. Laminate is what I recommend. Easiest to do, easiest to replace, and kind of goes with anything. And then so that's your flooring. Drywall is going to be right after that. As far as finish goes as well. Finish goes drywall before flooring, but drywall is going to be 6 to 7 depending on the finish you do. Not really anything that's going to be impacted by that. Same thing with paint. Before you can paint, you need to have your trim done. Doors and casing and base can get pricey. So just your standard stuff, you're going to be four to 5,000, depending on how many doors you have, obviously. And then after that is paint. Paint is going to have different tones. If you're just doing all one tone, cheapest, you're looking at 3,000, 3 to 4,000. If you're doing 2-tone, 3-tones, if you're painting doors, trim, walls, ceiling, all of that that's split up, that's different tones, and that can increase because that's extra days that the company has to be there, plus different material they have to use. You need permits if you're moving electrical and trim and that kind of stuff. Electrical or plumbing, framing, moving walls. So if you are going to be finished, if you're building a house and you're like, well, I might just do it later, it's going to be more expensive doing it later. The biggest expense for contractors is when they have to come back. If they can just knock it out while they're there, if they're already doing the upstairs and they can do the downstairs, it's going to be obviously a little bit more expensive overall, but it's going to be almost double the price to come back and do it later than having one person do it all. Plus, it's the whole price of bulk versus a smaller project. That would make it more expensive. And then as far as DIY versus hiring a contractor, if you're finishing a basement, I recommend hiring a contractor just because there's so many parts that have to be balanced. If you're doing it yourself and you feel comfortable, then yeah, you could do it yourself. I always recommend drywall, hiring somebody else to do that. Flooring, it just depends if you have the time. The biggest thing is hiring a contractor. It's going to be done very quickly because that's what the contractor does day in and day out. If you're trying to DIY yourself or contract it out yourself, you're having to do your day job plus this, plus dealing with your wife, so extended time for it to get done. the inconvenience of not having it get done, and the potential risk of you damaging something and making it even more expensive. That's what you gotta weigh, the pros and cons. So when it comes to getting multiple quotes, it just depends. Um, there's pros and cons. There's no set price for anything. If a contractor charges you a price, then you get the benefit of working with that contractor. If you're shopping around, then you're not. You could get a lower cost, but then your quality might go up. So it's just finding the balance of what works best for you. I don't have a big issue with people getting multiple bids. The biggest thing is that I put a lot of effort in my bids. I put hours and hours to make sure that I keep the cost as low as I can and make sure I can keep the quality as best as I can. If you're looking to finish a basement, you need to make sure that you have everything ready before you start the project. If your contractor is going to do it, making sure you have the full scope of work, making sure that nothing's been forgotten, make sure they have an itemized list of what is included. As far as the cost, I think that it's a contractor's right, or if the contractor doesn't want to give you the price, the breakdown, that's up to him, because he's giving you I just give a price to do it all. If I have to break it in and you're going to start taking stuff out, then I have to add more in other areas, because that complicates the whole process for me if you're doing it with someone else. My biggest nightmares and jobs I've had in the past is when I am not over the whole project, because then, for example, if you have your own flooring company, let's say, that is a big factor. So now I don't have control of when they're there or what their material is or that. So that makes it my job more difficult. So I have to charge more. Same thing with any of it. If you're doing your own carpentry or anything, then I have to. It makes it more harder to paint, because I have to. Yeah, it just gets kind of carried away. If you're thinking about finishing your basement and you want it done quickly and you want a quality project, click the link to book a call with me. I would love to get your project started, and I would love to work with you. Have a great day. Bye.